I have made quite a few pork rib videos recently, and that's mainly because I'm really into cooking pork ribs. But I had an idea for a rib flavor profile that I wanted to try, a flavor profile that I love, and I know many of you will be familiar with it, and that is Tony C's. I'm gonna say Tony C's because I don't know how to pronounce the second part. Chachere's, Tony Chachere's. Creole rub, so it's got a good Creole flavor, good Cajun flavor, and it's basically a seasoned salt. And I'm sure you all know many people use seasoned salts in place of regular salt on ribs. And I really like this. I put this on pretty much everything. Potatoes, vegetables, meats, everything. Honestly, it's really good. It even says great on everything. So I wanted to make up some ribs using this in place of something like Lowry's. And these new ribs from John Davidson's, these full spare ribs are looking pretty good. They're the kind of rib that I'm after. You can get St. Louis style ribs here pretty easily. You can get spare ribs here very easily. A lot of butchers sell them. You can buy them online in so many places, but I always find that they're often too thick or they're just full of shiners. That's where the meat has been cut too close to the bone to try and maximize the amount of pork belly that the butcher's gonna sell. And for me, these are looking pretty good. We're gonna cook them up. Probably get them trimmed up and shaped up a little bit more, just get some of those end bones out. Doesn't look like there needs to be much work done to them. Just find that end bone, take that off and maybe just round off this edge. Just do the same, round it out. And you can see here where they were taking that pork belly off, gone a little bit too deep, gashed it. They've come back out and tried to tidy it up a little bit. Flipping it over, you might like to take the membrane off. I personally don't. I don't feel like it's necessary, unless you're gonna be wrapping these really early, in which case the membrane might go a little bit too soft and rubbery. I love pepper on my ribs, so I'm gonna go first off with some black pepper. And then we're gonna hit it with our Tony C's, basically seasoned salt. And this stuff really is mostly just salt, so I'm not gonna go too crazy. I don't wanna over salt them. Definitely a high ratio of salt in this stuff. But contrary to popular belief, it's not saltier than salt. And on this side, although this doesn't need a binder, I feel like this is a good opportunity to put some crystal hot sauce on. Whether we'll taste it at the end, who knows? Black pepper, Tony C's. Definitely let me know in the comments if this is something you've done before. I've never done it, but I'm sure it's a pretty popular thing to do. So these are looking really good. Let's go outside and fire up the Weber. So we've already got some charcoal on our Weber, and we're gonna go on with a little split of oak. And I know it doesn't look pretty, but it'll be absolutely fine. Gonna go on with our rib tip side facing the wall of the Weber, which is the hottest part, and I want to render out that fat in the rib tips. Probably going to run it around 250 Fahrenheit, maybe 225 Fahrenheit, and I'll just adjust the vents as needed. So we've got our vents at the bottom fully open, put our lid on, and we'll open up our vent maybe about halfway, and I'll just come back and check this with a instant read thermometer through the lid just to get a rough idea of where we're at. But I'm not too worried either way. When I'm cooking on a Weber, I'm pretty casual about it, so all we want to do is get some smoke flavour into these and get them tender. So we'll come back in a bit. So this Weber's locked in at around 237, 238 Fahrenheit, which is pretty good. And yes, I know I need a thermometer on my Weber. So about an hour into this cook, these ribs are coming along nicely. Really good colour on there. Definitely dark around the outside where the rib tips are against that wall, which is good. That's what we're after. Not going to do much other than just let them roll. Maybe spritz some if they start to get a little bit too dark around the edges, but just going to let them cook. So 3.5 hours into this cook, cooking at an average of 240 Fahrenheit, something like that. These have got all the color and I imagine all the smoke flavor that I want out of these, so we're gonna wrap them up in foil. So these are gonna go in meat side down or bone side up. Got a pretty basic wrap on these. And these can go back out to the Weber. Meat side down, tips toward the edge. So about 5 minutes ago, I went outside, I checked these ribs, they were probe tender. In fact, really probe tender. I think I overcooked them. I checked them out, I wrapped them up, I brought them inside, I opened them up again, had a little look at them, and then I realized that I wasn't filming the whole time. So rather than filming it all again, reenacting it, I thought I'd just tell you, and I felt like you'd understand. It happens. But these ribs are on for a total of about 5 hours, and they're nice and tender. As I say, I think I might have overcooked them a little bit for my personal taste. They might be getting close to more fall off the bone, which isn't really my preference, but we'll see how we get on. But yeah, they've just been smoking away in that foil for the last couple of hours. So let's open them up, have a little look at them. Then we're gonna add a little bit of sweetness, not too much, and then we'll slice into them. I'm completely reenacting this. They are, lost a couple of bones there. These are looking really good. They're really nice and dark, a little bit glossy, a little bit shiny. They've definitely got that Weber smouldering wood chunk smell to them. I mean, that really is fall off the bone. Told you I overcooked them. We're gonna go in with a little bit of Canadian maple syrup, just something to add a little bit of sweetness to these ribs without it being overpowering. Don't wanna add brown sugar or anything like that. And I really like maple syrup for that application. If I just wanna add a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of glossiness, just so we're not just eating pure fat and pure salt. And that's all I really want this to do, is just balance stuff out. And I guarantee these look absolutely awesome. Nice and glossy. So put these back in, wrap them up, and these can just rest here for the next 15, 20 minutes or so. 15 or so minutes later, I reckon at the very least, they're gonna look good. They absolutely do. Look exactly like they did a couple of minutes ago, to be honest. Let's slice into them and see how they taste. These are the most mangled boned ribs I've ever come across, so I'm gonna have to cut them upside down. They're looking really good. Yeah, absolutely hacked these ribs apart. Look at the state of that one. Got a couple of nice little looking ribs out there. They're nice and thick at the rib tip end, but when it comes down to the actual bone, they are super thin. Not a lot of meat on there at all, but see how they taste. I feel like I've been here a million times and I know exactly how this goes, and that is, I'm gonna eat the whole rack. A little bit over for me, but like perfect restaurant tenderness. Pulls right off the bone. Completely clean. Straight up, these have got a kick. Tony C's is definitely coming through. Might be that crystal, I doubt it. It comes through, stays on the back end of the tongue for a while. So I'm not really too sure how I feel about these ribs, to be honest. They are really, really good ribs. They look really good. They taste really good. They're nice and salty. They're nice and peppery. And I honestly think it's hard to beat maple syrup as a glaze. It has the perfect amount of sweetness, a little bit of smokiness, a little bit of caramel flavors without being overpowering. But I feel like all the things that make Tony C's interesting, all the spices that basically aren't salt and chili, have just kind of disappeared. And these ribs basically taste like regular salt and pepper Texas style ribs with a load of chili powder on it. So all you really get when you bite into it is a nice savory peppery rib with a load of heat. There's none of that complexity, if you can call Tony C's complex at all, but there's none of those additional flavors that make that particular seasoned salt good. Just kind of lose it. Maybe with all the smoke and the heat, those flavors have just mellowed out a huge amount. Is it better than any other seasoned salt? Probably not, to be honest. I think I'd rather take Lowry's because you still get the same amount of savoriness, you get the same color, same texture, but this just brings a spiciness that isn't really rewarded by any other flavor. It's literally just like salt, fat, smoke, heat. And for me, I'm not a massive fan of just spice for the sake of spice. Yeah, is it good? Definitely. Would I do it again? Probably, maybe not. I'd recommend you try it. I mean, it's a good rib. It's a really good rib. Some of these are overcooked, but some of them are absolutely perfect. Like this one, really good. And these new spare ribs from John Davidson's definitely worth a look. Check them out if you want to go for that full spare rib with the cartilage in place. Get that whole spare rib look. Yeah, so that was an interesting one for me. I love Tony C's. As I said, I have it on everything. Would I put it on ribs again? Probably not. But I'd love to hear if you put this seasoning on ribs or after watching this video, whether you plan to do it. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. It really helps me out. And I'll see you next week for another video. Ribbies, ribbies, ribbies.